Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. We've got things to discuss. So come inside, pull up a throne and make yourself cozy, my dear. And shut that door. Shut that door. We don't want people listening into our private conversation, do we, my dear? No, shut that door. Before I proceed, it is the first broadcast of this month of August. So in that spirit, I must remind you to subscribe to this channel. Hit subscribe if you mean to subscribe. And if you found yourself mysteriously unsubscribed, now is the time to press it. And also to tinkle the notification bell if you wish to be notified whenever I broadcast. And also I will remind you that my tip jar is in the description box below if you wish to treat me to something or other. Diamonds, rubies or emeralds, I'm really not fussy. Any one of those three is absolutely fine. But I'll take a cup of tea, my dear, with my sincere thanks. Okay, that's done for the month. First of all, before we get into this wonderful appearance by the Harkles today. Oh, they've been gracing us, haven't they? With their royal and regal presence. And the royal bugler has appeared from Montecito to trumpet with great fanfare their arrival. I would like to look at some of the body language in the images and the stills from this wonderful appearance. Let's look at Harry first, shall we? Because isn't it interesting? I find it intriguing the way that he delivers his princeliness to us. Now, this pose I call the cocksure cowboy. The cocksure cowboy. And he's going to make us dance in a cowboy style, my dear. Legs akimbo. Loves the legs akimbo. Oh, the positioning is almost as if he is trying to draw attention to something that isn't really there or isn't really worth seeing. And then on the top half, we have the jutting elbow out to the side at an angle. You see this jutting elbow? The stance is typical of a beta type gentleman or any other letter of the Greek alphabet, not necessarily beta, but typical of that kind of gentleman that wishes to portray himself as alpha. Do you see the contrivance? He wants to show that he's the man of the house, a master of the household, the rightful king of the world. So he will show you his cocksure posture and he will jut out his elbow to show you that, man about the house is here. But it doesn't wash with this, does it? Because genuine alpha characteristics can't be faked. You can smell them a mile off, my dear. If you want to see true alpha masculinity, look no further than Big Willie. Because he displays it naturally. He doesn't naturally put on a display. Do you see the difference, my dear? I will say, with regards to what Prince Harry is wearing, I think that the clothes are lovely, really nice, and they do him as many favours as a wardrobe could do someone like Prince Harry. Lose the bangles, the hippie beads and the neck string, pop them on, for the occasional moment, but he would look a lot more elegant with just one single timepiece to the wrist. Perhaps a signet ring, if he must, but no, none of these bangles and baubles are needed, but the rest I think looked very nice. I think the shirt was made of exquisite cottons. It has a sort of silky look to it, maybe some silk involved, but I liked it. I can't tell at first glance if his trousers are denim or cord or some sort of chino, but I like the earthy tones. Very well dressed today. So whoever advised him, gold star to you, my dear. The scene was reminiscent of a Ralph Lauren moment, wasn't it? Very Ralph Lauren. Maybe they're hankering for a sponsorship. Verdant green creepers hugging the tree there, clinging to the tree trunks. Not the conjoined palm, I noticed, that represents them in the driveway at Montecito. Some old creepers. Jeepers creepers. He's fighting his natural inclination, which is probably to cross his legs. And lots of betas posing as alphas will do this. They are so afraid of coming across at all effeminate that they've got something to prove to you. He wants to lean back and cross his legs, but he dared in case he looks girly and in case he looks secondary to Meghan's natural dominance and sense of masculinity that she has in spades. So he strikes what I call the hero daddy pose. Daddy's home, She's obfuscated her own father from her life, so a daddy figure, there's a vacancy for it, isn't it? And Harry's going to become a vacuum and fill that daddy vacancy with his hero daddy pose. Do you see in this lineup, for example, with William and Catherine and Harry, how one would naturally fall into leaning slightly back on the chair, crossing a leg? It looks natural, doesn't it? And there you have the court jester, at pains to contort himself into some sort of contrary stance, some contrary position. He wants to illustrate that he's different, that he's a rebel, that he doesn't fit in with the mould. But all he achieves is the appearance of somebody that looks like a heap of coat hangers, some sort of tangled mess. And it only goes to illustrate what is going on inside with his inner psyche, that tangled mess. That's what he shows the outside. Whereas William has no problem with any conflict between masculinity and femininity within him, so he just adopts most comfortable posture. Yes, he's got his legs crossed, which is traditionally feminine, but as any truly masculine man will tell you, they ain't afraid of leaning into both sides of that spectrum, of both sides of that polarity. To be truly masculine, you have to be able to be at ease and at comfort with your feminine side. So, yes, Harry might decide to portray that side of him wearing bracelets and bangles and necklaces that you can get from Camden Market. But there are more elegant ways and there are more natural ways, Harry. Just be you, my dear Harry. You don't need to prove anything to us. You don't need to prove anything to wifey. Only to yourself. A very contrived scene for this simple phone call that they've made. Lush visuals, very lush visuals, but completely over the top for this apparently candid moment that they've come to show us in this video recording. Duchess Meghan, well, she is playing the dutiful wife, isn't she? She's dutiful. And quite beautiful. I think she looks chic in this affair. I don't care for the earrings. I really don't care for the earrings, but as for the top and bottom, fine. But something is wrong. I'm sorry to say something is wrong. There is a clangor. That turtleneck might tell you what happened to Prince Harry's foreskin, because he was so fond of telling us that he was circumcised at birth. Now we know where it went. Now we know where it went missing, because that is going to go down in history as the foreskin dress. Yes, just as we had the poop hat, the pile of poop hat that she wore. Now she introduces us to the foreskin dress. Don't tell me that ain't a foreskin. Don't tell me that that ain't a Sharpay on stilts. And do not misunderstand me. I would plump for a foreskin any day of the week rather than anything without one. But on a member, not on a duchess. I do not want some Duchess of Foreskin. And that is exactly what this dress is serving me. Duchess of Foreskin. Terrible faux pas and a terrible shame, because the dress in and of itself is nice, it's chic, I was enjoying it, and then all of a sudden the eyes went straight there to that baggy foreskin affair around the neck. I christen this dress the foreskin gown. May it go down in Harkle history. And as for Meghan's wardrobe, a big shift, a tumultuous shift. Yes, an enormous change of strategy, and one that I have told you was coming. And I told you not just for weeks but months that this was on the way and in the works. And now you see it. Now you see it begin, because she's not in designer garb this week. I told you you will be seeing a lot more sort of high street affairs, much more affordable clothing, because she has a new type of market to reach. Not the Dior crowd, not Brioni, not Gabriella Hearst. No. More along the lines of this Malibu brand she's trotted out, Bleu Salt, because this camel-coloured top retails for $189 and the matching skirt for $162. I have to say, I think it's very nice. I think it works very well on her. I like the colour on her. She insisted that she only wore nude for the royal family because she didn't want to show anybody up, so she avoided bright colours. Well, she does that throughout her life anyway, so I don't know why she wanted to convince all of us she was making a special effort for the royals. But nevertheless, camel is what she chose, or this sort of caramel colour. It looks very nice and it's very, very affordable. So this is a whole new market that she is going to be attacking going forward. And the piece, within a few minutes of going up, was proliferated all around the internet. It'll sell like hotcakes. This promo video originally sprang up on Vimeo, but it began appearing over YouTube, and as soon as it did, I screen grabbed some of the first comments coming in. Here's a selection. Oh, I bet they were so happy. Harry is dead inside. So proud of Meghan and Harry. I would tell them, and then hang up. How desperate they are. Surprise calls with cameras pre-set up and everything. Lol. Harry, where is your wedding ring? And then a few comments such as cringe, mugs, so fake. Megamouth is as false as they come. Harry is thick as 2 planks. Well, I wonder if all these disparaging comments on social media are the kind of things that the Harkles will be wanting to do away with. Because all of this promotional activity you see today is on behalf of Archewell, who are working with the Responsible Technology Youth Power Fund, known as RTYPF. It's not exactly catchy, is it? And the RTYPF are designed to help those working within the responsible technology movement. Archewell is a founding member, and 26 of these youth-led initiatives are going to receive a total of $2 million in grants, ranging from $25,000 to $200,000 based on the organisation and its needs. And this promotional video is peppered with lots of footage of Harry and Meghan surprising the recipients with phone calls, looking ever so humble. Well, as I said in the previous broadcast, I for one would prefer to see Big Willie hanging out of a burger van, offering me some of his temptations and taking me by surprise. That's what we saw last week with William. Well, they might have tried to come along and upstage proceedings with these surprise phone calls, but you can keep your grant money, thank you, my dear, and your well wishes and your candid footage. I will receive my hot dog from Big Willie. They say that this partnership is going to be helping efforts including ensuring responsible use of AI. And then there's a big jumble of word salad attempting to explain what this project does, and apparently it's a philanthropic project bringing together an intergenerational cohort. They keep using the word cohort. It's a cohort of leaders advocating for an inclusive, equitable and accountable tech ecosystem. Sheesh. Yes, 26 different honorees. Well, to be very fair, in the right hands and with the right decisions, this could be something that we welcome. I certainly welcome the idea of internet safety, especially for young ones. It is undeniably a cesspit. It is undeniably a cesspit out there, and I think we are all worried for our children and the younger generations coming through, aren't we, my dears? I'm worried about the older generations too. I'm worried about everybody. It's hard to escape the sinister clutches of the internet. But my question is, are the chosen honorees that they mention a good representative sample of the population, and do they offer representation for the entire political spectrum? I think that is very important here. I haven't had any time to look over these 26 organisations. The news has only just been released, more or less as I'm recording this. So I haven't had time, but I did Google the first company that came up when I was reading, Cyber Collective, and I really wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. But one of the first things that appears on their website is a little quotation from Dr. Sophia Noble, the author of How Search Engines Reinforce Racism. Well, I haven't read the book, so I can't comment fairly or squarely on that at all. Perhaps search engines are engineered to reinforce racism, but from my view, where I'm standing, yes, I could agree with that if you're saying that they reinforce negative stereotypes against white people and Caucasians. Yes, I could believe it, because certainly many of the major players when it comes to search engines are skewered and favoured towards anything but white people. So, Dr. Sophia, I'm not sure when you wrote that book, How Search Engines Reinforce Racism, but I have a feeling that you weren't talking about reinforcing it against whites, when that is the only sort of reinforcement of racism that I see, because everything that I see and look at is a celebration of diversity and tolerance and people of colour. That's what it's promoting all over the place. So I'm not sure what world or what country she's living in, but she also said, I speak all over the world about issues of discriminatory technologies, and it is so rare to enter into a conversation and a community that is mostly all women of colour. That is such a safe, beautiful space, quite frankly, for me to get to participate in. Well, I'm sure it is, my dear, but it also sounds extraordinarily racist to me to make such a meal about the fact that you feel so beautiful and at home in a space that is almost or entirely all women of colour and no whites. No whites. You feel much safer, and it's much more beautiful when there are no whites invited into your space. Can you imagine the outrage if the tables were turned and some white woman had said that it is so rare to get into a conversation and a community that is mostly all white women? That is such a safe, beautiful space, quite frankly, for me to get to participate in. All white women. No women of colour. No men of colour. No. Can you imagine if the tables were turned? Well, of course. You're not allowed to say that because you're not allowed to suggest that you can have racism in reverse. Well, in fact, there's no such thing as racism in reverse. Racism is racism. It doesn't matter where you're standing from and what race you are. Racism applies to all from all angles, despite what anybody instructs me in and schools me in and tells me. So I can't say that that represents the entire company of Cyber Collective, but that is what happened to flash up on the screen. You'll see it yourself if you Google it and go there first. Then I did have a flurry and look through a few of the other organisations very briefly. Some of them seem like they've got their heads screwed on and don't seem like they're out to do any harm to free speech or various protections. For example, I saw the ISD, the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, powering solutions to extremism, hate and disinformation. And I noticed that even though they do certainly have a large focus on extreme right-wing activity, they also acknowledge some far-left anti-Semitism, for example, and how historically tied the very far left are to some form of anti-Semitism. So at least they were acknowledging that. But if you or anybody else is going to lecture the world on hate and disinformation, can you please begin with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who have been waging one of the largest scale hate campaigns and disinformation operations against their own family, our royal family, the institution of the monarchy, this nation, our United Kingdom and the Commonwealth at large, and the late Queen's legacy. Can you please begin with them? And it speaks about algorithmic ranking systems, automated decisions about which pieces of content to prioritise on platforms like YouTube and all the social media ones. And when it comes to this sort of topic, social media algorithms, this is where people are a little suspicious of Harry and Meghan's motives because of their links to institutes such as the Aspen Institute. This is where people become a bit suspicious about whether or not they actually want to protect people or whether they want to oppress opinion and stifle free speech. And I'm not jumping to that conclusion at this stage, and certainly not with these companies that they are linking up with. But we know that it's something we need to keep our eye on. Because we know, don't we, my dears, that they have links with various nefarious individuals and organisations, some of them shown on the Netflix documentary, for example, who do enjoy and have a habit of throwing those in the media, in the press, in social media, on YouTube platforms, on Twitter platforms, throwing those who are sharing fair-minded, reasoned, logical critique, throwing them in the pit with those who are willfully hate-mongering and solely hate-mongering. I do understand why there must be certain safeguards in place for that type of thing to a certain limit, but when it comes to people freely sharing their own opinions, what we must avoid online when it comes to any new legislations being brought in or any new safeguarding, what we must avoid is the sort of scenario that we are seeing at the likes of NatWest Bank and Coots, whereupon if you are not towing a particular line, if you are not having the right opinion, if you are not at the right end of the political spectrum that is unacceptable to the likes of these 26 honorees or to Archewell or to the Aspen Institute, or if you are not towing that particular line, then it is time to de-amplify you or cut you off or make sure that there is no funding available for those outlets in the press. This is the kind of thing where we have to be very careful because there is a fine line. And they took the opportunity to make an announcement today that Meghan will be joining Harry at the Invictus Games in Dusseldorf in a few weeks. And unhappily, this will fall just one day after the anniversary of the late Queen Elizabeth's death. So if there are any commemorations going on that day, then immediately after in the morning, the headlines will be jostling with the Sussexes for room. And I'm not saying they planned that. I'm sure perhaps the games were organised and put in the diary long before the late Queen died. But it does great, doesn't it, my dear? It does great. Meghan is going to moderate a farewell show at the Games for families and competitors. It's going to be very emotional, so they say, and Harry is going to give a closing speech. So basically, she's going to be riding his coattails because the Invictus Games is a great success. It is Harry's great success, and she wants the shine reflected on her, doesn't she? So she's going to run along in her role as First Lady of Sussex. It's just designed to make her look as if she is doing something worthwhile with her time, instead of sitting at home filing her nails with Doria watching reruns of Suits. Look who it is, my dears. King Cosy Socks. Our wonderful King Cosy Socks enjoying a wee dram there. He was at the whisky distillery today, meeting locals in John O'Groats during his annual stay at the Castle of May, beloved of the late Queen Mother, her home in Caithness. And what a glorious set of photographs of our king in the drizzly rain, looking really happy and looking such a scrumptious grandpapa, doesn't he? Isn't it such a shame that he was forsaken by those two, because he looks like the most scrumptious grandpapa in his cosy socks and kilt. Wonderful. He's preparing for his first summer at Balmoral as monarch, but it's likely he will be staying in Birk Hall with the Queen, because it's their Majesty's own property on the estate. He sampled whisky at the Eight Doors distillery and met with market traders and customers. And it was delightful to see some bobbing, some curtsies from grannies galore, some curtsies from the Scottish grannies galore, and from some of the young boys, some bows from some of the young bairns of Scotland. And I think they did a wonderful job with it as well, my dears. A wonderful job. Thanks for dropping in to see me, Basketeers. I look forward to catching up with you in the next broadcast. Leave me a juicy comment and stay royal. Take care and toodle pip.